Okay. Hello. We'll get started in just a minute here. I know I can see people coming in. My name is Jason Shelley. I'm the president of IND, Independent Neighborhood Democrats. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We're trying something a little bit different. This is an IND first, with a COVID crisis set in just before our March general meeting. So we didn't get a chance to have that. And of course, we didn't have an April meeting, but we missed all of you guys, and we wanted a chance to have everybody get together, give you some information about what's going on both in Albany with our elected officials, what's going on in the campaigns. Believe it or not, we've got a primary coming up in just a few weeks now. It's going to be on us before we know it. With absentee balloting and early voting, people are going to begin voting very soon. In fact, permanent absentee voters have already begun. So we want to make sure we get you some information about public safety and about what's going on with our government, get you some information about the election, and just have a chance for everybody to get together. I know it's been tough sometimes reading all the news and keeping up with all some of the sort of terrible numbers that we've seen lately. But I've really found that diving into local politics and diving into campaigns is a nice way to sort of distract myself and get some work done. So we hope we give you some opportunities to do that tonight. But first, let's talk to some of our elected officials who are joining us tonight. They can tell us what's going on in their world and how they're approaching this crisis. So first up is our Assembly member here in the 52nd, Joanne Simon. Assembly member, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you let us know what you're up to these days? I think you're muted, Joanne.
Yeah.
Still muted.
Do you have to do it, Seamus? Okay.
I think you're good. All right.
I clicked
mark that square on your Zoom bingo card.
So welcome to Zoom, where you sometimes click on the unmute and you ended up still muted. So, but we all have experienced that over the last couple of months. Everybody is now a Zoom expert, which is really incredible. And I'm like, zooming all over the place. So I want to thank everybody for coming to this IND meeting for just the first one we've had since February, since we couldn't have our meeting in March or in April. And so I'm really excited to see everybody here. A couple things I want to start off with, kind of a little report from the district. First of all, like almost every other legislator in the state and the city, we are just overwhelmed with unemployment insurance applications and problems with unemployment insurance processing, with the confusion between where is that $600 coming from? Is it the state $600 or the federal $600? And what's the pandemic unemployment assistance? And the confusing ways that the terminology is, plus the completely overwhelmed problems at the State Department of Labor, which had in a week more than they had like 6 or 7 times more than they had in the prior year when we had the turndown in 2008, 2009. So it was really just astronomically different problems, and some systems that clearly, hadn't kept up with. Don't make noise, Bill. My husband's coming into the room. I didn't want him to make too much noise. Just some, we found out that other states are similarly impaired. They're all using COBOL, and who knows how to program in COBOL anymore. So these are just lots of problems. Seamus does. So there are just lots of issues that are surrounding this issue, and we've been working on it constantly. My staff has been working like dogs. We're all working, 7 days a week, and doing our best to try and be as responsive to people as possible. So the big issues we've been dealing with in the district are unemployment insurance, the crying need for rental support for people. And how do we do that? How do we do that in a way that's sustainable? If you cancel rent, but you're not helping people pay their mortgages, or you're not helping, you know, your commercial landlord pay his mortgage, then, you know, we end up creating sometimes some other problems. So what we're doing is working very hard to make sure that we are providing support for everybody who needs support. And that's not a very easy thing to do. You know, as we've talked about in the past, you know, I know my last time I spoke with the group, we talked about an impending budget shortfall of about $6 billion. Well, make it 16 to 25. We just don't know. And until we get money from the federal government, we're not going to know how much of a shortfall we have. And we are very, very concerned about possible cuts to the state budget. The governor has not, in fact, any proposed budget cuts. He's holding off as long as possible because nobody wants to do that. And we don't know where they will be, but we know the kinds of things that are likely to be cut: education, Medicaid, any kind of social services among those areas cut. So we're all very hopeful that we can get some money from the federal government that would actually provide support to the state so that the state can help us help the people that need this help, because that need is so tremendous. The other things we're doing, of course, is working with people to get them hand sanitizer, get them face masks. By the way, I have hand sanitizer. Anybody who needs a face mask, please let me know. I have various versions. I have the black mask. The city is giving us, you see, very attractive, very stylish. Put that under your glasses there, you know, very cool. I could do the rest this way, but I won't. And we also have, of course, the regular ones. Please let us know how we can help. Couple of other issues we wanted to share with you. One of the big problems is some people are not protected. My colleagues and I, in fact, the Assembly has previously passed bills that would protect people who are undocumented. Right now, any benefits from the federal government. So that's something people have called on us to do. And I know there are many people in the state legislature that want to be able to provide benefits for people so that they are not starving and they are not evicted. Hopefully working on that. The other is New York is almost the worst part-time unemployment bill or law. And we are working to change that. We can't do it through executive order. We have to do it through legislation. That's something I'm hoping we're going to be able to do when we go back into session. Which brings up the question of session. We don't know when we're going back, but we do know the Assembly majority will be having a conference tomorrow. So we'll be Zooming probably all day. We've had these conferences. Sometimes they've lasted 10, 12 hours. You have 107 Assembly Democrats and everybody has to talk. So we'll be finding out more, I think, about what kinds of bills we may be passing. We're hopeful, obviously, that they are likely to be things that are COVID related. There are some bills that sunset, so there are some things that we kind of have to do in the upcoming session. And we hope to find out when it is that we will be able to be in session. We suspect that we will be able to do it remotely. I know the other day I did the very first committee meeting by Zoom. So they worked out the kinks with my committee, and we had a full committee meeting at which we could take a vote the other day. Couple of other things. We did a deaf and hard of hearing town hall where we had that connected with people from the School for the Deaf. And the deaf community was on that, and it was sign language interpreted and it was captioned. And other than the little bit of Zoom bombing we had in the beginning, at which we were visited by our friends from the Nazi Party and the KKK and the pornography department, it was a really smooth town hall and very effective. To help parents deal with the issues that are presenting them by being their child's parent and educator, and some of the issues that come up for kids who really are struggling to learn remotely. And a lot of that, of course, is kids with much harder to deliver remotely. And we had our first Zoom Java with Joanne a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to be doing another Java in about 2 weeks. The other day, I was in a public hearing on COVID-19. I know Assemblymember Wright was chairing one of she chairs the caucus, and they were one of the co-sponsors of this hearing. And that hearing was about 12 hours. And but it was very important to hear. We heard from people all over the state. We heard from people with varying in different ways, and it was very, very instructive. And I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to take back that information, craft it into legislation, and get some things passed to help the people of New York. And then the only other thing I want to say at this time is I want to remind everybody, as Jason did, that there is a primary coming up. As you know, you can vote by absentee ballot. If you go to nycabsentee.com, you can apply for your absentee ballot online without having to fill out any forms or mail it back. However, if you don't do that, you want to encourage all your friends and neighbors to do this, everybody will be sent a ballot application. They are not being sent a ballot application. That application will be sent to you. You can return it. It's in a postpaid envelope. And then when you get your absentee ballot, you have to return it by in the mail. It has to be postmarked by June 22nd or hand delivered to the Board of Elections the next day. That will also be postpaid. So we want to make sure everybody knows they're not going to be paying extra to vote by mail, and it will be available to everyone. You just check off the box that says temporary illness, because COVID-19 is a temporary illness for everybody. And the other thing I want to just mention is, of course, we have candidates that we're supporting. We have 2 of them with us this evening. And one is Jessie Pierce, who's running for district leader. Say hi, Jessie, wave. We're going to be hearing from her later. And we're really working together, Josh and Jason and I, and Susanna are working together with Jessie's campaign to make sure that we can get every vote out there, and that we are able to make sure that she's on everybody's radar screen when they go to fill out that ballot. And then our other candidate that we have tonight with us that IND is endorsed is Assemblymember Tremaine Wright, who's running for state senate to fill the seat that's being vacated by Senator Montgomery. And we're working with her campaign as well. And so you'll be hearing more from her soon. We'll be doing a Zoom meet and greet for her, and we're getting that scheduled now. We'll also be joined tonight by Assemblymember Joe Lentol, who has a primary. As you know, IND doesn't endorse in races that don't overlap with the 52nd Assembly District. But we also often help out candidates that we like. In other places, we can campaign for people, even if the club doesn't endorse them. And so, I've asked Assemblymember Lentol to say a few words about his campaign and his background and history. And we will be speaking later or hearing later from Assemblymember Diana Richardson, who has a primary by Jessie Hamilton, because last year, 2018, IND really made a difference in making sure that Jessie Hamilton did not come back to the state senate, and that he was replaced by Zellner Myrie, who we have developed a very good relationship with, and who's been a real standout in the state senate. So he is running against Diana. I think he has some ill feelings because she campaigned for Zellner. And he's out there running a primary for her, and we want to make sure that we help her out if we can. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm certainly happy to take questions from people either in the chat or however else we're doing it, or come back later on and help respond to questions as well. So thanks very much.
Alyssa here. I'll be your MC for Q&A this evening. Please keep dropping questions in the queue. We'll make sure to get to all of them. But we have a question from Devin, who's wondering when the absentee ballots might arrive. I think you're muted.
Sorry, what was the question?
The question was, when do you think the absentee ballots may arrive?
Well, those permanent absentees, people, for example, there are a lot of, elderly people, people with disabilities, or people who just can't stand in line, let's say, for example. that have permanent absentee ballots. So they will always get an absentee ballot. And the military ballots went out a week ago. So I was calling around for Jessie the other day. Assemblymember Wright says she got hers today. I called a woman the other day. I called her on her 84th birthday. She had already voted, right? So there are people already have their ballots. And so we want to, that's one of the reasons why this is like the longest voting day in history. We're going to be that we get the word out as soon as possible for our candidates and help them with phone banking and other activities.
Great. Another question from Elizabeth is, what are we doing about the census?
Well, that's a good question. We have been, my office certainly has been talking about the census forever. Brooklyn is at 46%. The city is at 48%. The national average is like 52% or something like that. Or maybe that's the state average. The 52nd is about at the state average, a little bit above. But that's still pretty crummy, actually, when you think about it. If the state average is 52% and we're at 53, I'm not really happy about that, right? So one of the things that I think is hard during this time of COVID-19 is every day blends into the other. It's hard. People are working at home. They're overwhelmed with having their kids at home, and they're not thinking about the census. We've been asking people every time I go out to give out masks and hand sanitizer. We ask people about the census. We give them a form and take a name, tell them we'll call them, respond to the census and encourage them to do so. And I think the best thing we can do is encourage people to fill out the census and make it clear it's not just about losing a congressperson or two, which would actually make a huge difference. But it's also about things like planning for our schools. Do we know we're going to have 500 kids at that school, or is it going to be 700? But we thought it was 500 because we undercounted. So it has very real consequences in the day-to-day lives of many people. And we want to encourage them to get involved in the census and getting their friends and neighbors to respond to the census, so we can limit some of the census apathy that I think we have in some of the brownstone neighborhoods.
Great.
Okay, very good.
Back to you.
Thanks so much. Alyssa's our feel free to post those all evening. We'll try and get to them in real time, or we'll do some Q&A at the end. Also want to mention, if you're here, I can see the stream kind of going up and down, the numbers. We'd love to keep track for our membership purposes. There's no formal sign in, but leave a comment or let us know in the comments there that you're here. We'll try and capture that as best we can. So, and I want to thank Seamus Campbell especially for setting this up, and it's always a chore when we use new technology, and I would say this has been so far very seamless. So thanks so much for that, Seamus. We'll transition to somebody that Joanne mentioned, and it's another one of our endorsed candidates this year, Assemblywoman Tremaine Wright, who's running for the seat being vacated by Velma Knapp Montgomery, who's been a friend of the club for quite a while, the 25th Senate District. Assemblywoman Wright, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to and how we can help you?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be here tonight. Thank you for allowing me to come back. I think this is the second time that I'm getting to chat with you since the endorsement evening, so thank you. I just want to let you know what's going on with the campaign since then. So we've gotten a number of endorsements. We've been rolling them out. They include DC 37, CWA 1180, CWA 1109, CWA District 1, Emily's List, and and the Brooklyn Queens chapter of NOW. We're about to roll out a couple of big ones next week, and I can let you know now that one of them will be TW, the Transport Workers Union, and the other two are a bit of a surprise. So they asked us to hold off on it, and so we're going to be excited to share that with you next week. We're trying to make sure that we keep the momentum going and that we're making contact with voters. I hope some of you in the 52nd every day. We've had a couple of Zoom parties. I'm not Zoom parties, what do you call it? Phone banking parties that began with Zoom parties. And we would like for you guys to please come and join us. We really are looking forward to having more people reach out via phone and to make contact with their neighbors. This is probably what I've realized. And I don't think it's been the same in other races because we've had the opportunity to go out and meet people on our own. This campaign is only going to be won by utilizing and connecting with people and collaborating with folks who are already on the ground, people making sure that we are going through all of the connective tissue that already exists and that we're sending our messages through. So I'm really asking if you would be so kind as to make sure that you're following us, that you help repost, retweet, resend all of the information that we send out. And then also if you would join us in helping with the phone banking. The campaign website is brooklynwainwright.com. Anyone can sign up to volunteer. Otherwise, you can just shoot me a message directly and I will make sure that our volunteer coordinator reaches out to you to make sure that they get you on board and we can really use you for any and as much time as you have available. If you have an hour or if you have 10 hours in a week, we are definitely open and available to that. Let's see. In addition to that, we've been outside actually making contact with people over the past 2 weekends. We've been distributing masks and sanitizers. I was out with Joanne maybe a little over a week ago now. Miles and I were out last Saturday. I also went out with the senator. And this past Sunday, I was in the 56th Assembly District. Since then, we've been doing sanitizer fill-ups in the plaza at Restoration Plaza. So people just come in, we have an opportunity to speak to them. We are sharing census information when folks come to take advantage of the sanitizers. So we're trying to work together to make sure that we're hitting two birds with the one stone. This coming weekend, we will be hosting another sanitizer fill-up at Restoration Plaza, which is our opportunity to use it. One of the things we're doing on Saturday is that we're going out to actually do a lit drop. We anticipate that now that it's warming up, people are outside a little bit more frequently, that people and to talk to them. While we are socially distancing and people may not want to take hand-to-hand information, it's great to be present and to have the information readily available along with all of the PPE, and people will engage in conversation, we found. So that's been some of the good stuff going on. And I guess, yeah, that is sort of where we are with the campaign.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Assemblywoman. Do we have any,
Thank you.
Alyssa, any questions in the comments below, or maybe we'll look for them at the end?
No questions, but I did want to mention there is a delay from the Zoom to the Facebook. So if we aren't answering right away, it's not because we don't love you, it's because technology. So please feel free to ask questions all along the way and we'll definitely get to all of them.
Fantastic. And I dropped the website that you mentioned for your campaign. I dropped that into the comments of the Facebook as well. So
thank you.
People can check that out, and we'll put any other events or things up on our Facebook page. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I also wanted to shout out Michael Mallon, who's hosting a watch party of this broadcast right now. So welcome to everybody there who's tuned in. Another person Joanne mentioned, a neighbor of ours, I guess, from the 50th Assembly District. Joe Lenthal is with us. And Joe, I know you've been working on some COVID-related legislation. I saw some news about some legislation you had with nursing homes, and just wanted to give you a chance to share some of the things you're working on and the exciting path ahead for you. Thanks so much for joining us. I think you're muted, Assemblyman.
Hello, Jason.
Got it. Perfect.
Got it. Thank you very much to Seamus and to Alyssa and you for inviting me. I just have to tell you first off that I was contacted by Joanne Simon just recently to ask me how she could help. And I said, well, I need some phone calls. And she suggested that I come and visit with you tonight. And I'm happy to do that because I've never done that before. So let me just tell you about COVID. The first thing I can, the governor adopted my approach to absentee voting. I introduced a bill that required us to do only absentee voting when the pandemic hit. And the governor thought that that couldn't be done on election day, as well as early voting in addition to absentee ballots. So that was the first step that I took on pandemic legislation. But I introduced that bill, I think, in March or maybe even February, absentee voting. And you're right, I did also introduce a bill, two important bills, I think. The most important is that people who are hit with the virus are often isolated and without their families at a time when they need them the most. And I introduced a bill called the Compassionate Helper Bill that would, under certain conditions, a helper or a member of the family to be a helper to that person who, in most cases, has no one except the nurses, the orderlies, the doctors to see. And they went into the hospital without realizing that they may never come out. And so I thought that this Compassionate Helper Bill was a very important bill. And the governor, once again, even though he didn't say that he would pass the bill, issued a variation of that program by allowing family or a helper to come into the hospital on a trial basis in various hospitals throughout New York City, so that COVID patients don't have to be alone and they can be with somebody. In addition to that, I'm glad you mentioned the bill. I thought that we ought to be prepared. The nursing home folks have been the most vulnerable. It seems like it's a terrible thing. And I introduced a bill so that if there's a follow-up to this pandemic, that they are required to be prepared. They're going to have, gear for everybody, PPE, so that everybody has it. The health department will do an audit to make sure that they're complying with every letter of the law, so that anybody who goes into that nursing home is tested and doesn't bring the virus in. And I think that when we go back to session, that bill has a good chance of passing at this time. The other bill, I don't know if any of you are animal lovers, but I noticed, and you may have seen in the newspaper, that a lot of euthanasia is going on now at a time when people need their animals or to adopt an animal the most, because they either have the virus or they're home alone, and companion animals are being adopted left and right. And I don't think that this is a good time for the euthanasia of dogs and cats. And so I've introduced a bill to stop that. I don't know if that bill is going to pass, but I think that there ought to be a moratorium, which is what my bill calls for, on the euthanasia of companion animals. So those are just three things that I've done. But like Joanne, my office has been fielding unemployment claims like you can't imagine, and helping constituents with food, calling senior citizens to make sure that they have everything they need, delivering food, and calling to find out how seniors especially are getting along, and providing masks, and hand lotion for Purell type lotion, so that people don't have to suffer by giving the virus to somebody else. So those are the things that I've done with COVID. And I don't know if you want me to continue and make a long speech, but I've also been very proud of the record that I've established in the New York State Legislature, especially in criminal justice. And I chair the Codes Committee, and long before it was popular, I introduced 13 years ago now, raised the age of criminal responsibility, which I negotiated and passed. And we had the best year possible last year with criminal justice reform and the bail reform package, as well as discovery and speedy trial, which now became the law. Probably the four most monumental criminal justice reforms ever passed by any legislature anywhere. And so I'm very proud of that. And I think I'll end there because, if anybody has any questions, I'm an open book.
Very good. Thank you very much, Assembly Member. We'll keep an eye out for questions in the comments and bring them back up later. But thank you for sharing on that.
And by the way, I just want to say this, that you have two outstanding legislators in addition to Joanne in the audience right now. And they ought to get a lot of support from you. Tremaine Wright and Diana Richardson are excellent legislators, two of the best we have.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Assembly Member.
You're welcome.
I'll turn to one of our other endorsed candidates who's here.
I didn't pay him very much for that either. I just want to.
Very good. One of our other endorsed candidates, and Joanne mentioned her earlier, and we've been doing a lot of work actually lately for our endorsed candidate for the female district leader for the 52nd, Jessie Pierce. I wanted to just mention that we did a phone bank, a day of action with our friends at Brooklyn Young Dems last week. We had a good number of folks. I think we had like a dozen or so IND members and a bunch more of BYD. We made hundreds of phone calls. And I'll just mention, for anybody who's done that in the past, sometimes phone banking can be tough. I think I had the sense, at least, that people were looking to talk to somebody. I had a lot of really pleasant phone calls. I didn't have many people getting upset that I was calling. I had people seemed chattier than usual. I wasn't sure how it would go in this sort of environment, but it was good for my mental health, I think. So I'd encourage anybody coming up. I know Jessie will talk a little bit about it, but she does phone banks on Tuesdays and Wednesday evenings. We're going to do another one on Saturday, May 30th. We'll put up some information about that later. But take an opportunity to make some phone calls, whether it's for Jessie or one of our other endorsed candidates. It's a good time to be doing that right now, I think, because it's so difficult to get out and do person to person. So with that very long intro, Jessie, welcome. Thanks so much. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what we can do to help.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Jason, IND. Hello, everyone. I'll just say that I thought last Sunday was fantastic. We had a huge turnout and we made 432 calls, I think is right. So tons of calls. And yeah, I think the feedback was really great. So thank you so much to everyone who came. Thank you, Jason, Alyssa. I'm going to name people and then I'm not going to name everyone. So I'm going to get myself in trouble. Thank you, Joanne. It was really fantastic, and it's personally a real shot in the arm for me. I agree with Jason. Phone banking can be tough. We also offer texting too. So we teach everyone up on a app called Reach. If you just want to text people in your network, we want to try to make it as accessible as possible. And hopefully I won't take up too much airtime, but I just want to tell a quick story where I called a woman named Vivian, and my initial spiel is always like, "Hi, my name is Jessie Pierce. I'm a candidate running for office. Just want to check in and see how you're doing." And she's like, "What are you running for?" And I said, "Oh, I'm running for district leader. Are you familiar?" And she was like, "Yeah, Joanne Simon's the district leader." And I was like, "Oh, well, Joanne's the former district leader. She's the current assemblywoman." And she goes, "Oh, that's right. She goes, "Who's the district leader now?" And I was like, "Oh, that's Joan Millman." She goes, "No, Joan's not the district leader. She's the assemblywoman." And I said, "Yes, she is both of those things." And she goes, "Well, you're not running against Joan." And I said, "No, it's an open seat. I'm very grateful to have the support of both Joan and Joanne Simon." And then the next day Joanne invited me to some of those hand sanitizers and mask giveaways at Toba's building, 101 Clark. Who was out in front but Vivian, who I spoke with the night before, and she was just as vibrant in person as she was over the phone. And of course, that's not every single phone call, but it was just a really meaningful touch for me. She was like, "I'm glad I met you in person." And so was I. I was very happy to meet Vivian in person. But yeah, so we have phone banking every Tuesday and Wednesday. And again, thank you so much to everyone who's come and shown up. I think that I've just been so grateful about the collaboration that this campaign has seen. And and IND has really shown up. And I just want to thank you guys. It's clear that an endorsement is very meaningful for this group, and that's not something that I take for granted. And so I just want to express my thanks. And so we have those every Tuesday and Wednesday. Please come through. And as Jason mentioned, there's going to be another IND dedicated event at the end of the month. And the other pieces that I want to make sure I call out is I think we're going to be scheduling a fundraiser over the next couple of weeks. Big shout out to Thomas Rosborough, where his originally planned fundraiser didn't quite go as expected, as the world didn't quite go as any of us expected. But I think we're going to try and set it up for our new reality sometime soon. And then the other piece that I want to call out is our Dear Neighbor campaign, which again, I'm very grateful for Joanne and everyone else who's schooling me in this new campaign method that is the Dear Neighbor campaign. But I'm going to go ahead and drop a Google form in the Facebook links or in the Facebook comments here. And I think while the campaign is also planning on doing a mailer, it's clear to me that there's nothing that people trust more than a recommendation from a friend and a neighbor. And so this is a really powerful method of just getting my candidacy out there. And I think it's a great way to collaborate and work together. We can do like an envelope stuffing party, which is actually really fun. I did one the other day. They're weirdly lovely, or not so weirdly. But anyway, these are all the different methods in terms of getting in touch and getting involved with the campaign. I'm definitely feeling the burn of it being a little over a month away, but really excited where we are and how we were able to transition and do this sprint to the finish. And I just want to thank everyone here in this group, because it was definitely a team effort to kind of pivot and get really focused on the best way to get things done in order to get over the finish line for the election. And that's all I got.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I know nothing could overshadow the endorsement of a group like IND, but you got an endorsement I think I saw today that maybe you want to mention to the group.
Yes. Yeah. We announced today Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez has endorsed my candidacy, which is very exciting. And again, a big shout out to Joanne Simon, who helped facilitate that conversation, but I'm super grateful. She's also my Congresswoman, and I don't think I need to tell anyone here the great work that she does, and very thrilled to get that today.
Wonderful. So we'll look for the link that you dropped, the Google form for those Dear Neighbor letters. People can put on their calendar Saturday, May 30th. That's a week from this Saturday that we'll do another phone bank. And honestly, it's a pretty good time. So I'll be bugging people about doing it. Thank you so much. Want to turn to, speaking of district leaders, our male district leader for the 52nd, Josh Scaler, who does not have a challenge this year. I was asking him today if he is on the ballot or not. I actually don't know the answer to that question. So Josh, let us know what we can do to help you and sort of what's going on in your world. What's going on with county committee? There've been a few developments lately.
Well, yeah, let's start with the thing you could do most to help me is to help Jesse. And I'm very much looking forward to having Jesse co-lead with me. I've been super blessed by fantastic co-leaders every step of the way so far. And Jesse will fit right into that pantheon of people I look forward to working with. And I can't tell you how important it is to go to county meetings and have somebody you're looking forward to seeing. So that would be great. I won't be on the ballot because I don't have a challenger. So that's one less decision that you will all have to make. So that's a good thing. And I think probably the quick updates I would have are I had looked forward to putting together a rules committee meeting at county. As many of you may know, I have been the chair of the rules committee for some time in order to take up in large part the question of non-binary leaders and how we are going to be as inclusive as we can possibly be to everybody. And that's a topic that needs some discussion, and making sure that the rules are fair and we're including everybody, and we're still protecting women's participation. That's something I think that's come through that's very important to a lot of us. However, because we have a new leader, Rodney's Bechet is our new county leader replacing Frank Sedio. There are the heads of the committees have been dissolved, and they have not yet been reconstituted. So it is not clear who will be running those committees, but at this point, they're not meeting. So I would love to see that rule, a rule taken up at the county level to address these issues. I strongly suspect that legally it probably has to be a state issue. Joanne can probably speak to that a little bit more closely, but it doesn't preclude us from taking a position on the county level for sure, regardless. We did, I think, a really great job at qualifying our county committee. We have a lot of our election districts got qualified, and given the circumstances, I think that was a pretty valiant effort. So Jason and Joanne and Alyssa and Seamus and everybody who participated in that really should give themselves a pat on the back. That was a tough one, and we're in good shape relatively. There have been other assembly districts that did not come out of it so well, and so I think it's going to be a little bit of a patchwork to put together the full county committee at county when we finally do meet. But we'll just have to figure that out as so many things now. It's just something we're going to have to figure out as it comes. So that's my little piece.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. And I'm glad you mentioned county committee petitioning, because I wanted to mention that too. It seems like it was a long time ago, but we haven't met since then. But we actually had on very short notice, we thought we had another week or so. We had to crash on collecting those, completing the signatures. It was a huge monumental lift to get everything sorted and put together for binding. Yourself, Jessie and her team were there, Joanne, Susanna, thanks to Joe Crichione. I don't know if he's listening, but Steve Olswang and Aaron Uyang from Rep Your Block and a number of those folks. We had a lot of people come out right as this crisis hit. We kind of all spent that last weekend together, making sure that all of our candidates get on the ballot. And I don't want to make light of it, but there were other candidates, established candidates in the assembly, who had real trouble and perhaps won't be on the ballot because they didn't have teams that were as focused and putting in the work the way that we did. So
yeah, let me just rejoin that, because I would just be completely remiss without saying that our friends at Rep Your Block really did an outstanding job gathering signatures with us, and it was really a delight to work with them. They were really great partners. So thanks to all of them too, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. I thought that was a seamless cooperation, even when circumstances shifted very quickly. And so I was very proud of that effort. And I thank everybody who was involved with it. Another effort that
I just want to, if I can,
sure.
just say one thing, and that is I just want to give another shout out to Susanna from my staff, who was there all day, right? And stayed late. And then after everybody else who was totally fried left, she and I stayed and continued to meet about things we needed to do before I then hopped in the car and went up to Albany that last week. So it really was an incredible job that she did, and really helped keep everything moving and everybody together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to Susanna and to everybody else. Speaking of helping other people, an effort here in our neighborhood that my wife, my personal connection, my wife has been part of. One of a friend of the club, Glamani Bravo Lopez, who works for Steve Levin, our council member, has been very involved with the West Brooklyn Waterfront Mutual Aid. And this is, you've probably seen mutual aid groups popping up all over Brooklyn and other places, but I can attest firsthand, these guys are helping a lot of people. They're bringing groceries, they're running errands and doing necessary things for people who can't get out of their house, or maybe they've been laid off and they're having economic, financial trouble. This is a group of dedicated people who are working really hard and organizing and helping out our neighbors at a time when we really need it. So we wanted to give Glomani a chance to talk a little bit about that organization, what they're doing, and what help they can use from us. I know you've got people running errands, you've got people making deliveries, you've got people making dispatching, people like myself who maybe didn't have time to do it, but can give a little bit of money to help defray some of those costs. What can our people do? What do you need and how can we help, Glomani?
Sure, thanks. So hi, everyone. Glomani here. Great to see all of you. Thank you, Jason, Seamus, and Alyssa for putting this together and helping this transition to Zoom go smoothly. So I do want to give a few Councilmember Levin updates real quick while I have those fresh in front of me here. Obviously, our office has also been fielding a tremendous amount of unemployment inquiries, many general welfare issues related to social services, as one might imagine, as well as open streets. So with the open streets designations,
Glomani, I think you froze up for a second.
okay.
Okay, good.
All right. Yeah, so I was going off open streets, food distribution, working with the administration, with NYCHA, with the 3-in-1 home delivered meals program, and ensuring that folks throughout the district do have access to food. Face mask distribution, if you know any community-based organizations which need, and I believe the other electeds here did bring this up as well. Certainly reach out. Happy to connect you to the folks from the administration and Borough Hall, where they are distributing face masks. Do want to make sure folks are definitely taking the proper precautions and staying home as much as possible to, again, prevent the spread. Something the council member has been adamant about in his role as chair of general welfare is ensuring that folks in our homeless shelter system do have access to hotel rooms, can be quarantined in hotel rooms. This is something which FEMA had said they would cover the costs. So this is really pressing the administration to ensure folks who come down who are symptomatic are moved to these hotel rooms, both for their well-being and that of the staff, city staff at our shelters and related facilities. So there was a hearing on Monday. If you want to check this out, it was a Zoom hearing, as all council hearings have now moved to Zoom. On general welfare, you can find that on the council site, in which the council member was pressing Commissioner Banks on what is being done for the safety and well-being of folks in our shelter system, as well as anyone who is displaced from the subways and I should say subways in vicinity during this subway closure period at night now. So that's been the latest. Definitely shedding a light on contact tracing has been one other element. As you may have seen, both New York City as well. New York City has been one to follow other municipalities in moving to contact tracing, which has been largely phone-based.
Sorry, Glomani, we lost you again.
And on that, I'll segue to the mutual aid component. So I think Jason did a great job with the introduction there on West Brooklyn Waterfront Mutual Aid, which is a framework of neighbors helping neighbors throughout the neighborhoods of Brooklyn Heights, Boerum Hill, downtown Brooklyn, Cobble Hill, Carroll Gardens, and Columbia Waterfront. Mutual aids are in place all over the US, certainly all over New York City. So usually in clusters of neighborhoods. And the way it works is if folks need assistance with groceries really with anything, they can reach out for free. It's entirely volunteer based. And volunteers who have already pledged to be available can go out and assist with those needs. Again, be it groceries, be it PPE for home health aid attendants. We've gotten just about everything there. So whatever that need may be, well, we can definitely use more volunteers. So I want to both share the information, which I will drop in the chat as well. That's the website, the email address, the phone number. So all people need to do is call or email for assistance. Some groups are using Google Spreadsheets to try to make this a little bit easier by instituting a hotline. Many people have stepped up to assist, and I think the amount of support here has been fantastic. But we can use help with outreach. It does not have to be in-person physical help running groceries, although if that's something that you would like to do, please volunteer to do so. But it can be remote help, it can be dispatcher duty, which is answering the phone, answering emails, connecting people with those volunteers. It can be outreach, connecting with other folks in the community, as well as doing check-in phone calls, well-being calls to our neighbors in need. And of course, while this effort is local, the group has helped neighbors across Brooklyn. So it has not been confined to these neighborhoods. We try to work with our partner mutual aid organizations where possible and connect them with resources that may be closer. But in a city as big as this, or I should say a borough as big as Brooklyn, there are folks in areas which are not covered by mutual aid. So we work to get them that assistance. So for that reason, I will put the Open Collective, which is the fundraising page specifically for West Brooklyn Waterfront Mutual Aid. And whether you would like to donate or to volunteer your time, get involved anyway, or could use the help, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Clemani. And people can look for that link in the comments here if they want to get involved or give money. And we'll repost on the Facebook discussion page as well. So we've been joined by one of our elected officials who spans 2 different boroughs. I understand he maybe already did a Manhattan event tonight. Thanks very much for making time for us and updating us on all the work that you're doing today. Senator Brian Kavanaugh.
Thank you so much. And if there's one upside of this otherwise very difficult time, it's lack of travel time. So I was at Manhattan Community Board 2 about 4 minutes ago. So here I am. But thank you all for your patience and all that you're doing. So I'm going to be, we are working as all the offices are in making sure we're meeting basic human needs. We have enormous need for food still throughout our district, especially in Chinatown and the Lower East Side, but all in Brooklyn as well. And we have, we're distributing masks and sanitizer and other equipment that people need, especially to service providers that are, public facing and volunteer organizations. But so if anybody has a need for that stuff, we do have a good ability to access and distribute that stuff. So let us know. We're also still very heavily doing unemployment insurance cases. All of our offices, the state, especially the state offices, have become kind of outposts of the Department of Labor. We're processing very high volumes of cases. We again have good direct access to the Department of Labor's systems on that and can help. And it was a very difficult time. And, but I will say that New York we've both been processing cases and also pushing for various changes. And the Department of Labor has implemented many changes that we've recommended on technology and waiving certain requirements. And so they do promise that these backlogs are really being resolved. We're still available to deal with individual cases. So anybody's having a problem with that should call us or their local, especially the Assembly and the Senate, because we have, as state officials, I think we're getting a good level of access and attention from the Department of Labor for our constituents. I'm the housing chair, and I've been particularly focused on the housing aspects of this. This is obviously the fact that a lot of people can't pay their rent or their mortgages because of financial hardship is both a short-term source of great distress and also a potential long-term problem in terms of people recovering from this, in terms of the economy recovering. So we've been focusing in Albany on a bunch of solutions. I have been working for a long time on a bill that would provide financial assistance to basically rental assistance to people who are facing a hardship. It's modeled on the Section 8 program. To the extent people still have income during the crisis, they would be expected to pay 30% of that toward their rent. But if they have lost their income, the program would pay 100% of their rent up to, it's not infinite, but much higher levels of rent than government programs typically pay, because the goal is to keep people in their homes. And, we know people in New York pay more than what is euphemistically called fair market rent in New York. So the idea is to develop a thorough program, get it enacted in New York so that as the federal government moves, we are ready in New York and have worked out a lot of the issues. And recognizing that, like a lot of things, is going to require federal assistance. I worked with colleagues and 200 of us elected officials from all over the state, but bipartisan, in fact, and lots of community organizations signed a letter to Congress saying we needed $100 billion nationally and about $10 billion for New York for rental assistance and housing support. And that is now the position of the House Democrats in a bill called the HEROES Act that they've actually passed, which is their official position with respect to what the next stimulus package should look like. There's also $74 billion for homeowner support in that package, which we're also, committed to trying to make sure we can get out to people. So we're working on that. It's a good piece of legislation. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and we're trying to move forward on it. On mortgages, there are many banks that New York does not have jurisdiction over because they're not New York State chartered. We can get to mortgages that are issued by New York State chartered banks or that are serviced by New York State licensed entities. It's still not a majority of the mortgages by any means, but we have a bill that would enhance the concept of forbearance. There's currently forbearance, meaning that mortgagees can't go after homeowners to get, to collect or take adverse actions. But under the current arrangement, as soon as that forbearance is over, all those payments will be due. So we have a bill that would basically, at the option of the homeowner, would push the payments to the end of the mortgage. So if you have 6 months of forbearance now, rather than having to pay all of that in month 7, the mortgage itself would be extended by 6 months. So if it expires now in January 2030, it would be extended to July 2030. Effectively, it would be like you didn't have a mortgage during the crisis period. Again, that's a piece of legislation I've introduced that we're trying to work our way through this state legislative process. And because a lot of these mortgages are federal, we've also been in touch with Kathleen Rice, who's a congressman from Long Island, who has agreed to put in a parallel, kind of companion to that into the federal system as well. And there are regulatory things that feds could do directly as well. So we're working on all that. A lot of other ideas. We're focused also on permanent housing for homeless families and single adults. Homelessness has always been a crisis, in our city for a very long time, but it's become a much more serious crisis and is a public health crisis. People should not be living in public spaces or in congregate settings for their own safety, but also for in a pandemic where our principal public health approach is to keep people separate. Having a big congregate shelter facility where tens of thousands of people living is problematic in itself. So obviously permanent housing is part of the solution to that. And so we're working on making sure there are resources available for that as well. We got a lot going on. One, I'm just going to do a plug. We have another town hall. It is scheduled for next Thursday at 7 p.m. We've done stuff on housing and on small businesses. This one is about reopening. So we got public health officials to talk about how that works, what the standards are, how close New York City is to meeting them, and also what people can do as they're preparing for reopening. We'll also have somebody from the MTA to talk about how the transit system is preparing itself, what that's going to look like, how we're going to, once we're all back on the trains, how that's going to work. And also somebody from a small business community who's on the governor's task force and can talk about that from the perspective of small businesses and what can be done there. So it should be a good discussion. I know you're all looking for more opportunities to be on Zoom in your evenings. So 7 p.m. next Thursday, please do tune in and we'll get information out that you can circulate for people who are interested. And I think I'll stop there. I know you've got a long meeting tonight.
Fantastic. Thank you. You've covered a lot of issues that I know are a big topic of discussion among people on our discussion board and among other IND members. So, good luck with all of that work. I think we've got a few questions for you teed up already from the comments while you were speaking. Alyssa, do you have a few of those?
Yep, I have them ready to go. Senator Elizabeth asks, will you support a bill that mandates the COVID-19 vaccine for everyone who can medically get it when the vaccine becomes available with no religious exemptions?
I have no idea. We would require every person to get it. I think it'll be a while before we have the billions of vaccine doses that'll be necessary to do that worldwide. So that's not something I've considered. I don't know that there's anybody. I don't know if there's any proposed mandate of the vaccine, but maybe I haven't been paying attention. So I will certainly look into it. And obviously I have had a conversation about the religious exemption with IND in the past. I assume that might be the impetus for this question. And, as I said then, and I know this is not a popular view among many, but I think that the idea that we are forcibly vaccinating people against sincerely held religious beliefs is not, it may be warranted in some circumstances. It may not be warranted in others. The point where, I think we'd have to understand a lot of questions about immunity we don't know yet whether people have had it or immune or not. So I think we'd want to look at how we're going to do that. I am a very strong proponent of making sure people understand that vaccines work and should be used in appropriate settings. And I've, stood with community leaders and public health experts to make that point repeatedly. And I will certainly make sure that a COVID vaccine, to the extent it comes into being, because of the warp speed with which the White House works and so many things, that it is available, and we'll do it. Yes, that was facetious in case anybody's wondering, but yeah, but thank you for the question.
Of course. I got a couple more, both from Steve Wagner. When do you think construction will begin again in the state? And then he's also wondering if anyone has proposed legislation to cancel rent or mortgage payments, or at least supplement them. He says his father works in construction and has no money to come in to pay the mortgage.
Yeah. So first of all, the construction is phased. Construction is supposed to happen depending on its significance. So there is construction going on now. It has to. Initially, all construction work was considered necessary and essential. That was viewed as not necessarily good for lots of workers a lot of construction work cannot be done while socially distancing. So there's now the standard is that the project itself needs to be necessary. And there are various, there are in certain infrastructure projects, certain obviously public health projects. I think that construction will phase in along with everything else. We actually, in the former Litch site, the developer there was trying to assert that the things they wanted to do there were necessary and essential, and they'd actually announced they were starting construction. And we said, we don't believe that the work to develop that project is in fact that, and pointed that out, and that project was postponed. But we have great concern for people who in construction and lots of other industries that really need their livelihoods back, and we want to open as quickly as we can do so safely. On the cancel rent, there are bills to cancel rent. Cancel rent has been a good, it's been very good for getting the word out, getting people to understand how serious the situation is and bring attention to it. As I said in my remarks, my plan A is to pay the rent rather than cancel the rent. I think it is a better, surer way to deal with the problem. It has fewer legal obstacles in terms of what judges will say about our ability to do it. And it also puts money in the hands of landlords who hire workers to maintain buildings and do repairs and also pay the real estate taxes, which of course our city is going to need to provide essential services and pay their mortgages. So that's been my approach. And as I mentioned, our push for $100 billion in federal money has become the standard position of Democrats in Washington. And I think we were early on in pushing that number. New York would get 10 billion of that. And we do believe that really would address much of the rent situation. So we're working on it. But I have and a lot of my colleagues are focused on the cancel rent movement. I just think this is a clearer, more certain way to do it. And again, I'm hoping to legislate on this matter. I'm hoping we can get to the point of legislating on this very soon in Albany.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll check in at the end if there are questions for any of our guests. But I wanted to get to somebody that Joanne mentioned earlier, a colleague in the Assembly, Diana Richardson. And Diana is facing a primary from, you could say, an old friend of our club, Jesse Hamilton. We have some history with him. That was one of the more fun campaigns that we did was Zellner versus Jesse Hamilton. And we were very proud of that outcome of Jesse is now coming back. He's primarying Assembly Member Richardson, and she was unable to join us tonight, but she did send a video. So we're going to attempt our most technically audacious move here tonight. Seamus, try playing the video, please.
Hi, this is Diana Richardson. For the last 5 years, I had the pleasure of representing the 43rd Assembly District in the New York State Legislature. And this year, 2020, I'm up for re-election. And so I'm asking for your support. I would really love to have the endorsement of I&D. Whether it was standing up and speaking on issues that matter the most, such as housing reform, criminal justice reform, education, and so much more, I've always been on the right side of the record. And so now I'm looking for your support to help me as we are down to the final days of this election. And I just need that extra push. So thank you guys so much for your consideration. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to us winning this together.
Awesome. Thank you, Seamus. It worked beautifully. So as Joanne mentioned earlier, we don't endorse outside of the 52nd, but whether you are a fan of the Assemblywoman, whether maybe Jesse Hamilton came and yelled at you at a previous I&D meeting, whatever your motivation, we're going to drop a link into the comments, and we'll have it up on our page later for a phone banking for the Assembly member. And if you want to help her out, please take the opportunity to do so. And I'll just put in one more pitch for phone banking in general, whether it's for any of our folks who are here tonight, the date that we have coming up for Jesse Pierce on Saturday, the 30th. It's a good way to get to people right now when everybody's stuck in their home. It's difficult to go out and do obviously face-to-face, and people are there for it. People are ready to be phone banked. That's my experience. So Joanne, before we get to any other questions, did you have one other item you wanted to add? I think you're muted.
I am. I was muting because I didn't want to sneeze or something. You know, I wanted to just address an issue that I had not remembered to mention, and that is the nursing home situation. And Assemblymember Lenthal mentioned it from a legislative point of view, but obviously, you know, our nursing homes have been really, really under the gun with COVID-19. Cobble Hill was in the papers very early on as having a very high number, which was actually 50, not 55, and only one was confirmed. And they've since had a few other deaths, but those were ones that were presumptive. But it's pointed out a lot of problems. You know, we have understaffed and under-resourced our nursing homes for many years. So the problems, you know, just like the hearing we had the other day about the impacts of COVID-19 on minority communities, is that all of the things that a lot of us knew were happening are now, you know, just wide open for everybody you can't help but recognize that there's a problem there. And so there were problems with them being able to access the support of the state in a variety of ways. And they had a lot of their people were sick. and they couldn't get staffing. And, I'm very grateful we were able to get some help in staffing from the mayor's office, for example, that made a big difference there ultimately. But it was, later than it should have been. So I just wanted to mention to people that, number one, they are now no longer the top one with the most deaths from COVID-19, which is good, but also that we are working very closely with them to get them the resources they need. And the community has really come out to be supportive of Cobble Hill Health Center, which has been a really excellent neighbor and an excellent facility in our community. And so we're going to be doing an event in early June where people are going to be making floral arrangements on their stoops and then walking them over to the nursing home at the 7 p.m. clapping time. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that everybody come out, although if you can and socially distanced, you're welcome to do that. I just wanted people to know, number one, that we've been working on that issue. We've made a lot of suggestions to the governor's office and about ways that we can help our nursing homes, and also that the community has been very supportive and is coming out to support the people there who really, when you think about it, the shock and the trauma and the need that we're going to have for mental health services going forward as a result of this is going to be just enormous. And while we know that those people in hospitals who are really living with people just the terrible situation that they're in and the number of people that are dying, and Joe Lentol's bill was really about helping people, if that's going to be their circumstance, that the medical teams are not going to be taken away and just holding hands, that there's somebody there to help somebody. But our nursing homes have people who've been living there for a long time. And these are people who the staff and the doctors and nurses really have developed relationships with. And so they're really actually personal losses in a different way than in an acute facility, for example, that I think we don't always think about. And so, that's, I think, been a really good thing about the community coming out and supporting, the staff at Cobble Hill.
Fantastic, thank you. And I want to share a message. Councilmember Brad Lander left in the comments. He showed up and his comment was, "Hello, IND. Hope everyone is staying safe. Thanks for all the leadership everyone is taking on to help support neighbors and enable our city to get through this impossible time." So thank you for that, council member. So we've made it through all of our speakers. I would say this worked. We worked very efficiently tonight. So thank you to all of these folks. Before we go, Alyssa, were there any other questions that we wanted to get to from the comments?
There are no questions in the queue, but again, we have that 30-second delay. So maybe I could just remind people to fill out their census in the meantime. If they have any lingering questions, might want to type them in now, or I'll ramble for just a few more seconds. Again, absentee ballots, postmark them by June 16th.
By the 16th, I believe, yep.
Yes, do that earlier, hopefully. Joanne, you're on mute if you want to.
Yeah, you have to apply by the 16th.
Right.
For the absentee ballot. You have to mail in your ballot by the 22nd. It has to be
The application, got it. That's important distinction, thank you.
Yes.
So I want to say,
Do it now.
It's worth noting that poll sites will be open, however.
Yes.
So that's also if you don't get your absentee ballot in, you can still go and vote. And I think they've finalized all their sites at this point, and I think it's pretty much the usual polling sites. I think a couple of them moved around in the 52nd, but there was not a lot of movement. So.
Okay, well, Alyssa takes a look for any last questions. I want to thank all of our guests tonight. Thanks Senator Kavanaugh, Assemblymember Lentol, Assemblymember Wright. I want to thank Jesse Pierce. I want to thank Josh Scaler, Assemblymember Richardson, who sent the video, Glamani Bravo Lopez for speaking about West Brooklyn Waterfront Mutual Aid. Thank you for Councilmember Lander. Anything else, final wrap-ups, Alyssa, from the comments section?
I think that's it. Remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter to stay up to date in this new virtual world we're all living in. Hope everyone's staying safe.
Wonderful. And I will again thank Seamus Campbell and Alyssa Meyer for helping me run things here and getting the tech right. And I'll say good job, everybody. This worked out even better than I thought. So we'll do it again. Thank you. Have a wonderful, safe evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Right.
Bye.